Norwegian Cruise Line's Black Friday preview sale is finally here. Enjoy huge savings with 50% off all cruises and NCL's all-new More at Sea package, including unlimited open bar, specialty dining, and more. Visit ncl.com, call your travel advisor, or 1-888-NCL-CRUISE. Offer ends soon. Norwegian Cruise Line ships registry the Bahamas and USA. Restrictions apply.
In the California Road Trip Republic, we believe you take adventure for a ride. Whether coastal cruising, mountain motoring, or redwood roaming, discover beauty around every turn. Your road trip can kick off from anywhere.
Starting route.
But it should always start at visitcalifornia.com. Then buckle up, crank those tunes, and discover why California is the ultimate playground.
You can support this podcast at patreon.com/partnersincrimemedia.
I'm Rebecca Lavoie, and this is Crime Writers On. Crime Writers On is the original true crime review podcast that digs into true crime, pop culture, other podcasts. And on this episode, a writer mined her own health struggles and personal challenges to create memorable television episodes. But like the TV show, it was all a work of fiction. We'll talk about the Peacock series, Anatomy of Lies. Joining me to get that done and more is true crime author, TV journalist, and host of These Are Their Stories podcast, my husband and love of my life, Laura Bricker. Hi, Laura.
What the hell?
Just kidding.
Rebecca, I'm glad you finally acknowledged that true relationship.
My husband and love of my life, Kevin Flynn. Hello, Kevin.
Hello, Rebecca.
Also with us.
I feel like I need to come up with a Finch-like comeback.
Yeah.
I mean, like,
Good luck with that.
Good luck with that.
Also with us is private investigator, certified pet detective, resident cat lady, and author of The Final Curtain, Laura Bricker. Hi, Laura.
Hey, Rebecca, I have a real cat detective mystery in my neighborhood. There is a doppelganger for my cat, Rocky Flintstone.
I saw that on social media.
Yeah, it is taunting me every day outside my condo.
Amazing. Are you going to adopt it and chop off its balls?
Well, I do have an obsession with animal balls.
I told you I saw it on social media. You talked about the balls.
I did. I'm obsessed because I was like, I thought it was a girl. I said, oh, no, you've got balls. No, I'm trying to find out who owns it because I'm just like, where did this cat come from? Could this be a relation to Rocky Flintstone? We will find out. There
was a crazy thing that happened a few weeks ago, and I'll send you the pictures. I posted them on social media, where a dog was found, I think in Dover, and it like it was just wandering around, and the police picked it up. It looked fucking exactly like one of our dogs, Briscoe, like exactly. And I posted it on social media, the side by side. And it was like, you can, like, this dog looks exactly like our dog. It's fucked up. It's fucked up. Even pets have doppelgangers.
The first time I saw this cat, I stopped my car in the middle of the street, opened it, left it running because I thought my cat had escaped my house.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Same thing happens with my wife.
Oh.
I keep opening my doors for strange women. Yes. And they're like, oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were my wife.
I thought you were Rebecca.
Yes. But then we negotiate and it's fine.
It's all fine now?
It's all fine now. I talk them down.
And finally, our captain of all things cynical, author of the City Trilogy of novels, host of Rip Current, Strange Arrivals, and our Patreon Deep Dive Book Club podcast host, Toby Ball. Hi, Toby.
Hey, Rebecca.
Happy Veterans Day, everyone.
Happy Veterans Day.
Thanks.
Thanks for your service, if you served.
Yes.
Or if you were the loved one of someone who served, that's serving too.
Yes, if you're a USAA member by relation, right. Like I am.
That's right. If you've inherited the valor. You don't have to steal it, but if you inherited it, that's okay too.
Oh, you're a Marine then. You're an inherited valor Marine.
That only happened to me once. It was in San Diego, and I pulled it on. They said, are you a Marine? I'm like, why would you even ask? Oh, because of my USAA card.
Oh, okay.
At the airport. Like, no, I'm a civilian. I just want this Reese's peanut butter cup. It's going to be a long fucking flight.
Kevin's like, do you think that because of my body?
You see, oh, shut the...
My giant square head? My giant square
Drop it, give me 20, LaBoy!
All right, Kevin. Obviously, this is Monday's program.
Yes.
What's coming up on Thursday's show?
I got a better question. Who can take a rainbow? Okay, we're talking about the podcast.
Sammy.
We're talking about the podcast Candyman, the true story behind the bathroom mirror murder.
Okay, so I just want to say Toby had no idea what you were doing there.
Zero.
Because he obviously is not aware of Sammy Davis Jr.'s body of work. Would you like to continue this
you
on?
know the Sammy Davis Jr. oeuvre?
I don't. Although once you broke into the Candyman promo, I realized that was probably what it was.
It was connected.
That's right. That's right.
He's got a song called Candyman.
The Candyman can. The Candyman can.
And I think the movie came first, right? Because that's in the Charlie and the Chocolate Factory movie.
Oh, okay.
And
but this Candyman movie, the old one, did not come out before Sammy Davis Jr.
Oh no,
Candyman.
hell no. This came out. The Candyman came out in 1992. I'm talking about like the old Willy Wonka, Grandpa Joe, that lazy fuck, Grandpa Joe, lying in that quadruple bed. If he finds out like he can go get some free candy, he is on his feet like that. What a lazy shit. He's like, all I needed to know is a little motivation, and I could have got out of this bed.
He came back to life.
He came back to life. I don't think he really...
There's an amazing subreddit. It's one of my favorites called r/Grandpa Joe Hate. And it is just a like torrent of hundreds of daily posts, hilarious posts about how shitty Grandpa Joe from Willy Wonka is.
Well, did Sammy Davis Jr. play Grandpa Joe?
No.
Oh, Jesus, don't tell me you didn't see Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory with Gene Wilder.
I think I saw it like in 1981 or something.
Grandpa's white, Toby.
Yeah, do you remember... Don't you remember Charlie Bucket at Charlie's house that they had a big bed and both sets of grandparents
They were all just laying there.
lay there feet to feet?
With their stupid stocking caps.
Yeah, stupid stuff. Because they're all too
Feeble.
and they got Charlie and the mom's got to take care of them, but all the time, really, Uncle Joe just needed a swift kick in the ass so he could get it. And then he's dancing.
Yeah.
But at the end of the song, he's dancing with a cane and a hat. You just want to like strangle the guy.
Literally, I don't remember a thing about it. I just feel as though I have watched it, but I couldn't tell you anything about it other than Gene Wilder.
Yeah.
There's literally this is the top post on the Grandpa Joe Hate Reddit. Like, look at it. It's a picture of Grandpa Joe photoshopped in front of the U.S. Capitol, and it says, "The winner of the United States election, Grandpa Joe."
Grandpa Joe. You already had a Grandpa Joe.
Grandpa
Was that
Joe.
Lee Marvin? Was that Lee Marvin playing Grandpa Joe?
I don't know. Some old
No,
guy.
it was the guy from Sanford and Son. I mean, no, not Sanford and Son.
We just established that
Fox
Grandpa
played-
Joe
No,
was
not
white.
Sanford and Son. It was Chico and the Man, right?
I don't know. I guess so.
What's happening?
I don't
Freddie
know.
Prinze?
No, not Chico. The Man.
Oh, the man. All right. This is very confusing conversation for me.
Look at this ChatGPT prompt. Is Grandpa Joe evil? Yes.
Yes.
Yes. It is canon that Grandpa Joe is a piece of shit.
All right.
All right, Kevin. Anything else you want to
It's
discuss?
been a weird bit of free association.
Yeah, no.
on this podcast.
I think we've
Have we exhausted the chit chat
we've
section?
exhausted the chit chat section. Poor Uncle or Grandpa Joe.
Yeah.
Don't at us. Grandpa Joe sucks.
Grandpa Joe sucks on the teat of society.
That's right. Yeah, he insisted on the fizzy lifting drinks.
He's a freeloader.
And then they had to sterilize the roof because they touched it all. And thank God for the burps, or they would have gone through the fan and been cut to bits, and all that blood would have been. It's Grandpa Joe sucks.
He does. He absolutely does.
You know he's a.
Is he cashing the checks?
Cashing the
You
checks.
look so sad.
Grandpa Joe's one of the takers.
Okay. So I just want to say one thing, Kevin.
Mm-hmm.
Just a few minutes ago, before we got into this whole Grandpa Joe thing, you were talking about what's coming up on Thursday's show, which is the Candyman podcast, right?
Yeah.
We've had a couple listeners ask lately, like, what's our homework? And we've had other listeners say to them on our Facebook page, if you subscribe to the Crime Writers On newsletter, you would know what the homework is.
Yeah, that's a feature I always forget to mention about the newsletter, is that right at the top, it's going to tell you what's coming up next week. So if you want a little bit of an extra, I mean, we tell you in the show, but if you want,
if you don't listen all the time, twice a week,
or you forget, just sign up for our free newsletter. You go to crimewriterson.com, and right at the top there, just stick your email address in there. We've had people who have been subscribing to this newsletter for almost 10 years now, yeah. And there's a lot of great things in there. It doesn't cost you anything, right? You'll get, and I'll tell you more about this. We have a business section,
It
right?
literally has the highest open rate of any MailChimp newsletter I have ever seen.
Yeah, people really enjoy it.
Yeah,
So
it's got like a 70% open rate. It's wild.
Yeah, so you would know Candyman, and I could tell you what's coming up next week, but I'll just leave it for the newsletter.
Okay. Just fun fact, the standard open rate for a media newsletter?
Like
20%.
20%, okay.
Yes, and we're like at 70. Okay.
All right.
Can we talk about the thing we're talking about
I don't know, Rebecca. Can you bring yourself to do it?
What are we talking about?
If you subscribe to the newsletter, you would know, Laura.
It's been so long since you introduced us. So yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm looking at my cat who's like having an existential crisis right now. So I've forgotten everything else.
As we all are. Okay.
We've already proven there's another cat. Your town looks exactly like him. So
in my neighborhood,
That's
it's
right.
downright creepy.
if he's existential,
He's a fraud. Okay.
all right.
Can we drop that first clip now?
Drop it.
Let's go ahead and drop that.
When I'm watching a story, whether it's fiction, whether it's documentary, I can tell when someone is speaking a truth. I know when it's from a point of view of a lived human experience. And I think that that's what people are craving.
Just before the producers of Grey's Anatomy could dismiss writer Elizabeth Finch for mediocre work, she revealed she had a rare form of cancer. Finch drew on her experience to write some powerful episodes for the medical drama.
If there was a deadline approaching and then something was going on medically, my attitude was always, Finch was family and take whatever time you need. The work will get done. We'll figure it out.
Finch crafted acclaimed storylines based on her own struggles with health, assault, sexual harassment, and stalking. Hollywood was shocked when it was revealed Finch was faking all along. She'd taken other people's real-life trauma and claimed it for her own, stringing along those close to her for sympathy and attention for years.
I let her into my home. I let her into my kids' lives. She lied to me. And I had no clue at all.
Peacock's Anatomy of Lies recounts the writer's elaborate ruse and how she parlayed others' pain into personal and professional gain. It leans heavily into the perspective of Finch's wife, who worked to expose the woman who fooled so many. Spoiler alert, we're going to be talking about some pretty significant plot points from Anatomy of Lies, so if you want to remain spoiler-free, go to the estimated time code in our show notes for our thumbs up or thumbs down reviews. So, Laura, this woman was obsessed with Grey's Anatomy. She had other very good writing jobs. She worked on The Vampire Diaries. She worked on True Blood on HBO. But her dream was to write for Grey's Anatomy. What do you think about that?
Well, it gave me some Fatal Attraction vibes in a way. It was like, we all have a dream. And as soon as True Blood, I was like, oh my God, Kevin does the best impersonation. Every time I hear True Blood, I get very excited about that.
Bill,
okay.
okay.
But
I will not apologize, Suki, for loving you.
But
think she wrote that line? Oh my God.
Oh God, what if she wrote that line, Kevin? It's all a lie.
It's all a lie.
He didn't really love Suki.
He did. No.
But the fact that she was hired and it's like she was just obsessed and she just like was obsessed with the show. And then when you hear the people that work with her talking about how she had like this almost encyclopedic sort of memory of every episode, she'd be like, no, in season 3, episode 2, this person was wearing a white shirt, not an off-white shirt. Like she knew things down to minutia, and it was a little bit creepy. Already, I feel like this woman is unhinged. Like already that gives me a signal that something is not right here. And we know that going into this documentary, but I think that level of interest in something where you're so monofixated that everybody around you knows it, that's a red flag.
It's also a red flag.
Can I tell you more about my podcast? These are their stories.
Yeah, like the Karen Reed case.
Yeah, that's shots fired from Toby Ball, by the way.
Yeah, you can suck it, Toby. I will say the whole conceit of somebody who's at work and every time something is about to go wrong or they're about to miss a deadline or they know their work is shoddy, that's when something tragic happens. It's very sus. I used to work with somebody like this and it was so predictable that it almost became funny. But we also listened to another podcast about somebody similar, right, Toby?
Did we listen to a podcast about AJ Finn?
Yes, it was the
Torn Pages?
No, Missing Pages.
Missing Pages. Yeah.
So I guess I'd forgotten about that because I'd read an article about him, I think in the New Yorker. Anyway, it's this guy, Dan Mallory, who wrote the book, The Woman in the Window, under the pen name AJ Finn. And once people started to look into his background a little bit, he had done a very similar thing about, I think he went to Duke and then he went to like Oxford to get his MFA or whatever they called over there. But he was talked about how in high school, like he barely got to go to school because he was nursing his mom who had brain cancer, and then he had cancer, and something had happened to his younger brother, and he had like all this like massive sort of fictional story, and very similar to this one where he disappears sometimes and like shows up like sort of faking something. So, you know, it doesn't seem like it's that surprising that people who are writers will be able to come up with these sort of compelling fictions about themselves. But that was sort of the first thing that kind of popped in my mind when I started watching this.
Yes, and you can't underestimate the power of being in a protected class. So Elizabeth Finch came to Grey's Anatomy. She had this whole cancer story. And Kevin, that made her kind of untouchable, right?
Yeah, I mean, right. It seemed like the cancer story began just as she was going to be let go. At least that's what kind of
before that, but that's when it sort of came up with her colleagues.
Yeah, well, you're right. I mean, it bought her goodwill, and it also bought her protected status. And it's funny how she later then rose to the rank of co-executive producer. But I do find it hard to believe, maybe no one would bring it up, that in a room of creatives, that nobody rolled their eyes the 15th time something horrible happened to her and just thought, really, is this all, maybe not assuming that she didn't have cancer, but how many times can grandma die, right? I mean, that it's a version of that, right?
But she was delivering. I mean, so aside from the initial mediocrity,
well, yeah, right.
She ended up delivering really good work.
Right. Well, I mean, it's a tribute to both her skill as a writer and as a con woman. But you're right. As Toby was talking about, there's an expectation that writers will use their experiences for their work, which could include not just their personal experiences, but their knowledge and perspectives of other people, in their circle or whatever. And her work probably would have been just as good if she had presented it as such, she didn't have to come in saying that she had cancer, going to the extent of wearing the headscarf and everything like that. The cancer episodes, because she researched it to some level, it just might have been just as good. And she could have asked that other writer about incorporating her story about being a child of rape. It would have been even better if she said, let's write it together or whatever. But again, that's not the point at all.
Or do you mind if I use your story for inspiration, right?
It's not whether or not she's a good writer or a bad writer. It's kind of as you say, the skill of being a writer. How did that inform her ability to spin yarns and live life as a con?
But I think that skill as a writer and that ability to sort of spin those stories, she created this persona where as you listen to the people talking about her, they're like, oh, Finch did this and Finch did that. Finch was a character to them.
I mean, she fought cancer. She went public about sexual assault. She lost a friend in the Tree of Life shooting in Pittsburgh. And everybody was really supportive. But it felt like whether or not other people had stories, Finch's was worse and she had more authority to speak on it.
Because of all the things that Finch was doing, because of the way that she was able to describe her life in this story sort of format. And you hear the same thing when she later connects with the children of the woman that she meets at rehab. It's she's one of those people that's this, I don't want to say mastermind, that's not, but has this ability to sort of spin the people around her into her orbit in such a way that you're wow, can you believe what she's doing now? Not holy, that's a lie, but it's just whatever ability she has as a writer to tell a compelling story. She's using that same ability in her life to create this sort of caricature of Finch.
It's called being a sociopath.
Yes.
Well, that's what I wanted. Yeah, I'm curious about that too.
But it also worked to her advantage, right, Toby? Because as we hear, you can't just get a job writing in Hollywood if you're a regular Joe.
Yeah, it was interesting. I guess I hadn't really heard that before, but this sort of British guy who I guess was in her screenwriting program, it's not even very clear if he knew her very well or anything. But anyway, he's kind of a colorful character. But he says to get work in Hollywood, you have to be so interesting that people want to meet you. And it seemed as though she had a pretty normal upbringing in a nice school district in New Jersey and stuff. So what does she really bring to the table as far as having people need to meet her to find out what she's all about or whatever? So there's kind of a weird pressure, I would imagine. I'd sort of wondered why the cancer thing? The other things, she went and she got other people's stories and she went from sort of somewhat passively getting other people's stories to very actively going out and seeking people who were troubled to get their stories. But the cancer one is the one that's why did you do that? Where did that come from? And I guess it's to get into Grey's Anatomy because they'll be dealing with that kind of stuff. But that seemed like the kind of, hook that you can talk to people. I can talk about my cancer journey with you. And I've got this really rare kind of cancer that people rarely survive from. But look at me in my port my Lego that I've taped to my chest. So yeah, I just thought it was interesting, and it made me think about at least the beginning of her sort of arc a little differently. And then she's like, if you watch it, she goes completely off the deep end.
Yeah. One of the things that occurred to me, Laura, was that she also, besides the cancer thing, levied some very serious allegations about people, her brother, for one, who she says regularly like assaulted her when she was a kid. And also she claimed that she was a Me Too victim on one of the sets of one of the television shows she worked on. And she was able to insert herself into the zeitgeist every time something big would come up in the news. And she wrote about it in these big national publications, which that's a whole other layer, right?
Yeah. So the whole time I was watching this, anytime it would pop up where there's like, oh, here she is writing another article. And she's like, I'm at the synagogue and I'm scooping up body parts.
Oh, Jesus.
I was at this thing and the director and this thing happened. And I'm like, okay, I know the level of scrutiny that goes into, fact checking for national magazines. I'm like, was nobody fact checking any of these articles that she was turning in? Was nobody trying to verify? Were they like, oh, well, nobody would make up a cancer diagnosis. Oh, nobody would make up scooping up body parts off the street.
I remember talking to Andy Reeser, and I said, do you understand how odd that sounds? The fact that she had to go in, scoop up her friend's brains. I mean, that's pretty heavy duty.
And the body parts one wasn't even hard to figure out because her later partner figures it out when she looks at her social media and sees she wasn't even there on the day that she said she was there.
Yeah.
So I think that was really frustrating to me listening to this was again, her ability to spin the story in such a way that people, for whatever reason, didn't even feel like they needed to fact check any of the details that she was putting in these publications. Or was she just going to publications that were like, whatever, it's fine. We're happy to have content. Exactly. We're not going to fact check it. Because I was just astounded by that. I'm like, all these people around her, nobody started to think anything was suspect. Like all these bad things befalling this person.
Yeah. And bad things will not befall you if you sponsor us on Patreon.
Oh, really?
No, I'm telling you,
Is that a guarantee?
It's an absolute guarantee.
Oh, okay, Kevin, that's a hefty
There's
promise.
a protective bubble of karma that will protect you for doing this good deed of supporting us at patreon.com/partners in crime media.
Really, it's going to protect you from everything bad potentially happening to you ever.
Yeah. You remember in the Brady Bunch where that spider was crawling up Peter's?
Yes.
When he went to Hawaii? Toby saw that, right?
And he had the tiki.
I saw that one.
Taboo.
Yes.
Yes.
And he had the culturally appropriated good luck charm thingy.
Yes, I'm willing to guarantee that
Don
if you
Ho is on that as well.
I guarantee you that if you join us on Patreon, you will not be attacked by a tarantula in your hotel bed. I promise. If so, I will refund 1 month worth of Patreon. And here's what you could get. This is what you could get. You could get the Crime Writers On after show.
Okay.
And today's after show, look, we're not going to get all into it. But if you really want to, maybe avoid stuff on your phone, we're all going to take out our phones. We're going to talk about the non-news, non-social media apps that we're going to probably be diving into and suggest that you also do so for your own mental health. That makes sense? Yeah.
Absolutely.
Everybody grab their phone. We're going to talk about some stuff that's there.
Okay.
On this Wednesday, Toby's going to be recording the new episode of The Deep Dive, and the book is called The Sullivanians. Toby, tell us who's going to be joining you.
I'm going to be joined by Janet Varney and Julia Lowry Henderson.
Yeah, and if you support us at the deep dive level, then you not only get to hear that podcast like everybody else, but you get to watch them recorded. We're working on a new platform, so hopefully no technical difficulties.
It's not going to be worse.
It's not going to be worse. That's true. That's true.
It's going to be amazing.
Yeah.
We just did a live show on Riverside. It was great.
And it was great. Yeah, we'll see.
We're recording this there right now.
I'm just saying, sometimes... like Finchy, sometimes they're like, oh, well, I really wanted it to go well, but it didn't.
Yeah.
So.
People roll with it.
Other podcasts include Married with Podcast, where we give relationship advice. Rebecca and I are just going to talk about some self-care tips that you should have. That's a timely one. And also we have the Leave It to Bricker podcast. And in the last episode, Laura went up north to look for Bigfoot and ended up in a very Sasquatchy bed and breakfast.
Airbnb.
Sexy.
Or Airbnb.
Airbnb.
What did I say? I said Airbnb.
You said Airbnb.
Oh, eat it.
It's an Airbnb.
It was a pirate B&B.
Kiss my ass, Rebecca.
An Arby's with a...
An Arby's, yeah. Wonderful.
Full of roast beef.
Yeah, full of roast
There was no roast beef at this Airbnb, but there was a sexy Sasquatch picture above the bed.
Oh man. So look, if you want to get like more about what's going on behind the scenes at Crime Writers On, summaries of our reviews, you want to see the pet of the week, read the crime of the week, find out if you are the Patreon patron saint. Very easy. Go to crimewriterson.com and sign up for our newsletter. It comes out every Thursday. It's free, and we promise that we will only sell your email addresses to aluminum siding salesmen.
Now, Kevin, you always have like a tweet of the week or like a
Post
listener
of the
response.
week, yeah.
So I have a prompt for listeners right now to make the newsletter, if you have the best one. What is your deepest, like, Brady Bunch memory that, like, you think you're the only person who remembers about that show? For me, I'll just share now. It's when
George Glass?
No, it was when they put the Franks and beans in the flashlight to bring to that kid who was like, remember that when they were like camping and they were
I remember pork chops and applesauce.
Anyway, let us know your favorite or most obscure Brady Bunch memories, and we'll find the best one and put it in the newsletter. Right, Kevin?
Yeah, maybe.
Tag us at Crime Writers On. All right, Kevin, does thus end the business section?
Thus ends the business section.
I'm going to go ahead and fade that music out immediately. So, Kevin, who's our next sponsor?
Hey, we're sponsored by Quince.
Oh, hell yeah.
All right, so this is what I'm going to do. This is the script. Tear it up. Because all I say, Rebecca, tell us about your latest purchase from Quince.
I got the most...
Because you purchase a lot from Quince very frequently.
It's basically like my wardrobe staple place, you know? I just got the most incredible faux fur hoodie jacket. It is the softest thing I have ever touched in my entire life. Every time I wear it, I'm like, you have to touch this. You have to touch this. You have to touch this.
Yeah.
I love it so much that I also bought one for somebody else for Christmas. I'm so excited about this jacket and about everything that I've ever bought at Quince.
Quince is known for their Mongolian cashmere sweaters from $50. And all Quince items are priced 50 to 80% less than similar brands. So get yourself something or give that somebody special something for Christmas.
They even have furniture now, Kevin. Furniture.
Yeah. Okay, I kind of regret ripping this because there's something to read.
Oh, I got to read this.
Read the end.
Okay.
You need both pieces?
No. I got Get Cozy. Get Cozy in Quince's high quality...
See, that's where I ripped it.
Yeah. Get Cozy in Quince's high quality wardrobe essentials. Go to quince.com/crime.
Crime.
For free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. That's QUINCE.com/crime.
Crime.
To get free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/crime.
Crime.
This is the sound of your ride home with Dad after he caught you vaping. Awkward, isn't it? Most vapes contain seriously addictive levels of nicotine and disappointment. Know the real cost of vapes. Brought to you by the FDA.
So, Kevin, who's the next sponsor for this podcast?
Hey, we're sponsored by Babbel.
Amazing.
Are you holding back on your travel plans this holiday because you're afraid of the language gap? Well, no need to mind the gap if you have Babbel. So, you know that sometimes when we can, in the winter holidays, we like to take a long weekend to Montreal.
Yes.
And we've kind of been reluctant to go farther north up to Quebec City.
Yes.
Because you really do have, unlike Montreal where you can get away, there's a lot of people that speak both French and English. You really got to rely on your French.
A little more,
if you're going a little up there, all right? And so there are times when I've tried to speak French to people.
Yes.
And it has gone terribly wrong.
Sure has.
With just these 10-minute lessons and a couple of weeks, I've been, I think, improving my French.
Really?
Yeah. So I'm going to be able to jaser, which is to chat with folks. I also learned what was really important is that European French differs from Canadian French.
Sure does.
You know, the French we learned in high school, like if you wanted to go to the convenience store, you would ask, où est l'épicerie?
Okay.
But if you're in Quebec, what you actually want to do is you want to ask, où est le dépanneur?
Okay.
See, so it's different. All right, so I'm still working on the accent and everything, but this is great. You have some holiday plans and you're going away. Babbel's a good way to get started.
Amazing. Here's a special holiday deal for our listeners. Right now, get up to 60% off your Babbel subscription, but only for Crime Writers On listeners at babbel.com/crime writers.
Crime Writers.
Get up to 60% off at babbel.com/crime writers.
Crime Writers.
Spelled BABBEL.com/crime writers.
Crime Writers.
Rules and restrictions may apply.
In the California Road Trip Republic, we believe you take adventure for a ride. Whether coastal cruising, mountain motoring, or redwood roaming. Discover beauty around every turn. Your road trip can kick off from anywhere.
Starting route.
But it should always start at visitcalifornia.com. Then buckle up, crank those tunes, and discover why California is the ultimate playground.
So, Toby, we kind of get to the meat of the story when Finch checks herself into a residential mental health facility and meets this woman, Jen. Can we talk about Jen a little bit? Because Jen really is the center of the story in many ways.
Right. So Finch, she goes into this psychiatric facility, faking having PSD after faking being at the Pittsburgh synagogue. She actually runs into somebody who really does have PSD for very good reasons.
Right?
Sorry, PTSD. What did I say? PSD?
PSD, yes.
Yeah, that's a different thing.
She has Photoshop.
Yeah, exactly. And so her story basically is she's got 5 kids and a horribly abusive husband who she left and then began stalking her in an extremely sinister way. Even when she's in the center as she's getting ready to get out, he's sending her these like very strange, threatening videos that you see. They don't really talk about how Finch sort of gloms on to Jen in particular, other than I think people said that Jen seemed like the most damaged or least outgoing of the people who are in this group.
We both were struggling with PTSD. When you see somebody going through what you're going through, you connect with them. We just grew closer because of our similarities.
But Finch befriends her. And I think actually, I think one of the sort of interesting things that happens in this is that Finch is like genuinely helpful to this woman and sort of brings her out of her shell a little bit.
Helps her fix up her house.
Invites her out to LA. They become an item, meets the kids. They eventually get married. And I'm sure other people want to talk about Jen as well. But I think the question, like at the end is like how much of this was just her trying to stay next to Jen to keep milking these stories out of her in her sort of continuously traumatic life. But at the same time, I think Jen is genuinely getting something out of it. And the kids are genuinely getting something out of it up to the point where the facade kind of drops away.
Right.
And then there's all these different things like, she's always joked about how she doesn't like kids. She never wants to be around kids or have kids. And then she joins this family with 5 kids, et cetera, et cetera. But so Jen's sort of, I guess, sort of the emotional center of this whole thing. Like she's a person who, while a lot of people kind of get burned by her, like you never really meet her parents or her brother. So Jen is really the person who's on screen a lot, kind of talking about the emotional impact, both positive and negative, her relationship with Finch had on her.
Yeah, we can just one detail we kind of glossed over about her visit at the stay at the institution is that she checked herself in under the name Joe, who is the character who, and I'm trying to remember, did Joe have the PTSD on the show before she went?
Yes, Joe had the abusive ex. She had the PTSD.
There must be so many Grey's Anatomy fans who are pissed off now realizing that their favorite characters went through shit because of this woman.
Yes.
And her being a fabulous man. Jesus. Anyway.
People are mad, by the way, because she wrote the episode where Alex Karev leaves Joe.
Yeah.
And people are so pissed about the way he left the show. Like there's so many other ways that he could have left the show. People leave the show all the time. And they had him like leave her high and dry for a character that like legacy everybody hates.
Yeah.
And people are pissed about it. I've seen it on social media that like they're angry. They want that taken. They want to take
They want to take it back. Oh my goodness. But anyway, just to follow up on what the discussion had been about Jennifer, right? She really is the emotional center. And man, it is one thing to be duped at work like that. I mean, if you can imagine a coworker like malingering, and I mean, you'd be shocked if like the person you thought was really ill wasn't. But it is certainly another thing to fall in love with a legit fabulist. And there are certain times when Jennifer is recounting her story, she's talking about it's almost like she's being re-traumatized.
That video terrified me. I was really, really scared and really struggling. I was going to have to go home and I was just extremely terrified that he was going to kill me.
Parts of it is really, really difficult for her to talk. I mean, we don't usually see that kind of level of
candor?
Not candor, but emotional discomfort. I mean, it really felt like, oh, maybe we should have taken a break and then asked the next question. She really just coded as like being re-traumatized, telling her story just because it is so raw.
I was really surprised, Laura, I saw you made note of this too, at how candid her kids were, right? Especially her daughter who participates in the documentary.
Yeah, I think that was one of the things as I was watching this, I was like, wow, this girl is so honest and she was so forthcoming and so raw about everything that happened with Finch coming into their family. I was like, it's pretty amazing that she's participating and that she's participating in a level that felt so genuine and so sincere and so honest. But also, it really made me think about the damage that the aftermath of this did to those children who were, feeling like, because again, like Toby said, like in hindsight, like she wasn't like abusing them. She wasn't doing anything like that. You're like, wow, that was really horrible. But she was lying to them and she was deceiving them. And I think it was like they were so happy. You see these videos and you're like, God, they seem like they're so happy. Like this woman, Jen, by the way, gets her kids back, which is really a big thing because her kids, that's why she's in treatment, because she's had this dissociative experience. And they're like, you need to get yourself together so that you can get your children back. And now Finch is there and seems to be supporting her. And you see these videos and you're like, wow, this is like, if I was one of these 5 kids, I would think, wow, hey, I didn't know this was the direction mom's life was going, but it seems like things are turning the corner. And then when they start to notice some of the things like Finch was going like across the street to like work across the street and then like laying in bed all day and things are starting to get weird. It was like, oh boy, this is problematic.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And the son also that participated.
He's thriving, by the way. I saw his Instagram. He's training he's like the Joffrey Ballet now. He's doing great.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Laura, I got to tell you, when you're talking about, I paused the show and turned to Rebecca and said, look, forget what we know now. If we looked at this and stopped in this moment, if Finch were like a genuine person, you'd say like, this is exactly how that would look, and they're painting things and all of a sudden.
Happy hippie house.
The happy hippie house. Right. But it's really just love bombing. And it's like, this other stuff. Did this hit you the way it hit me, Laura? Is like when Jennifer's like finally sort of coming to the realization that Finch has been lying and all this stuff. And like, what did she get into? And she says, like almost for the first time when she realized, she says it out loud that I met her in a mental institution.
The reality of my story started hitting of like, I met a woman at a mental hospital.
A lot clicks when you say that, right?
But Finch didn't need to be there.
No, that's right.
But she doesn't know that. And here's the thing, like when people go to AA, they're like, you should never date somebody you meet in AA.
Right.
Like you should never date somebody you meet in a mental institution.
I like how
they
earlier
may look
Toby
like they're
said,
sane.
I like how Toby said like, oh, well, she went there. She didn't have PTSD, but she met people who did. It's like, yes, everybody else there did. She's the only one without it, of course. But that's the point.
She's a catch.
She's a catch.
I found myself really wondering as this was going on, like as I'm watching all of this sort of unravel, because it's going to unravel. Like you're like, oh yeah, this is the direction. Even the way they're talking about it, you're like, oh, this is all going to be bullshit and this is all going to come out as a lie. I really wanted somebody like one of those like talking head people to come in and just kind of be like, this is what we think might have been going on with her. Because I'm like, she narcissistic personality disorder. Like what is going on with her? Like, is she just totally deluded? Like what was propelling her to this level of complete just fantasy in her own life?
Well,
besides this desire to be a writer for Grey's Anatomy, right?
Well, if her social media wasn't dark, you could ask her, Laura, but she's turned it on.
I went and looked.
Oh.
Believe me, I went and looked.
So somebody at one point says that she always had to be the center of attention. And so whenever anybody else was getting attention, it was something like, oh, I've got a kidney stone or,
I've lost all my hair, but not my eyebrows.
On my foot. Oh, wait, I really do.
Got a kidney stone from the one I got from what's her face? What's her name? Who gave her the kidney supposedly?
Oh,
Amber.
No,
Sookie.
Sookie. The actress who plays
Paquin.
with
Anna Paquin.
Yeah.
Okay, that's right.
I will not apologize for taking your kidney. I needed it.
So she and Bill are married in real life.
Yeah, they are. That's right.
Yeah, that was a pretty fabulous story. And don't you think, Toby, that there's like, you can lie, right, about little things. You can say I'm late because, my dog is sick or because there was traffic or whatever. Her lies were so big and so checkable. I mean, that was the thing that blew me away, right?
Not with HIPAA. How are you going to
Because giving away a kidney is a major fucking operation. And at some point, you would think that Anna Paquin would have had like on her Instagram, like, I don't feel well today or whatever. There's nothing like that.
No.
Or like if you see her in a bathing suit or naked and she doesn't have a scar there or where she got her cancer port or any of this other stuff. And this isn't the first time I kind of felt this, but I think I would suck as a con man because I'd always be like, how can I make my lies check proof?
Yeah.
Like, it's so nobody could ever find out. When in fact, like these they don't give a shit. Like this whole thing about going to the Pittsburgh synagogue and all this stuff. She's actually that day out partying with friends at a bar and posting that shit on social media.
Was she not Facebook friends with any of her colleagues? That's what I wondered.
How do those friends, like when they read something she wrote about it, why are they like, pretty sure we were like doing tequila shots at, whatever this bar was. I'm always just kind of surprised that people are telling these easily checkable lies. But I guess in my life, like I'm not following up when my friends are like, oh, I did this or I did that. I'm not like making phone calls to make sure that it actually happened.
Right.
I am.
Well, that's why if you're a con man, stay the hell away from Laura Bricker.
Yeah. Like I meet someone to find out where they live and I try to look on Zillow to see what house they live in. Like I'm
God,
that
you guys are creepers.
No, I'm very curious about people.
Oh, I pull up the assessor database right away and find out who owns it, if it's in an LLC, if it's in their name.
Really?
Oh,
but
yeah.
there are some towns, a couple of towns in New Hampshire where you can't do that because they've outsourced their assessor database and you got to pay.
Yeah, tell me again how Finch is creepy.
Like, oh, that person seemed nice.
Yes. Laura, though, it occurred to me when we learned that in this big surprise turn that Jen is a nurse.
Oh, yeah.
Do you think that she wanted to also be with Jen because Jen was a nurse and she could get like all sorts of material from that, right?
Oh, I didn't even think about that. I thought that came to my attention when Jen noticed, like she was looking at the pictures and she's like, oh, she's got like a port in those pictures. And I've never seen a scar on her chest.
And I've seen her naked.
And I've seen her naked. And that was the whole thing about this is like Finch surrounds herself with people that are giving her this material. But in this case, it was like an unlimited resource to be with a nurse when you're writing a medical drama and to be able to sort of ask every sort of question, but also using her own experiences like she did in the script writing. I don't know. I mean, I think for Jen, I kind of want to see a little bit more like where she is now, honestly. Like, okay, I hope she's doing well now.
She seems to be. I mean, she says in the documentary that she's got her career back.
Yeah.
And like I said, when I heard her son was a
Divorce is
ballet
still going
dancer.
on, apparently. Yeah.
Oh my God, the fact we learned at the end that they're still married. As I said, Laura, I mean, she does seem to be okay in the documentary, but then when I found out that she was still married to this woman, I'm like,
yeah,
that sucks. I hope she takes her for a lot of money. And she probably doesn't want it, but I hope she does.
Probably doesn't have
I
it.
hope she does too, but
Elizabeth has it.
Not
Finch has
anymore.
money.
Oh, well, I guess you find out about
she made like
reruns and
$40,000
shit,
an
yeah.
episode, and then
Yeah.
you hear how many episodes she took part on, and then she got like X number
Residuals.
of royalties on top of the $40,000. Did they say the royalties were like could be like $200,000 per episode?
You could
or
write an
something?
episode and earn as much as hundreds of $1,000s from an episode you wrote because it's in syndication forever.
Which is crazy to me. But did anybody else find themselves like at the end of this? It felt like I was like, oh, it's over, and they would do all the little like epilogue stuff. But I kind of wanted like, what was the other sort of lasting impact to Finch for this bullshit? Like, what's she doing now? Like, they're like, she didn't respond or comment, da 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 da. But I'm like, what's she doing? Like, everybody knows that she lied about this and she made up this shit. Like, what's she doing? Living off the royalties from Grey's Anatomy? Where is she?
Well, Grey's Anatomy is still on.
Yeah.
That's what I mean.
And it's in syndication everywhere.
Laura, you're not wrong. It seemed like that there was a lot of information that we were not given.
A touch of formaldehyde, a pinch of acetaldehyde, a splash of acrolein makes the perfectly evil vape cloud.
Vaping can expose you to a toxic mix of chemicals. Know the real cost of vapes. Brought to you by the FDA.
In the California Road Trip Republic, we believe you take adventure for a ride. Whether coastal cruising, mountain motoring, or redwood roaming, discover beauty around every turn. Your road trip can kick off from anywhere.
Starting route.
But it should always start at visitcalifornia.com. Then buckle up, crank those tunes, and discover why California is the ultimate playground.
Hi there, it's Andy Richter, and I'm here to tell you about my podcast, The 3 Questions with Andy Richter. Each week, I invite friends, comedians, actors, and musicians to discuss these 3 questions. Where do you come from? Where are you going? And what have you learned? New episodes are out every Tuesday with guests like Julie Bowen, Ted Danson, Tig Notaro, Will Arnett, Phoebe Bridgers, and more. You can also tune in for my weekly Andy Richter Call-In Show episodes, where me and a special guest invite callers to weigh in on topics like dating disasters, bad teachers, and lots more. Listen to The 3 Questions with Andy Richter wherever you get your podcasts.
Everywhere you look, things are getting more expensive. So at Consumer Cellular, we're lowering the price for those 50 and up. Now you can get unlimited talk, text, and data for $30 a line when you buy 2. That's just $60 a month for 2 unlimited lines. So if you're 50 and up, make the switch and save. Come on, you've earned this. Call 1-888-FREEDOM or visit consumercellular.com today. Requires 2 lines of service, age validation, and credit approval, subject to system and area limits, taxes, and other fees apply.
All right, let's do what we do. Let's let our listeners know, should they check out Anatomy of Lies on Peacock? Laura Bricker, what do you think? Thumbs up or thumbs down for this 3-part doc?
Yeah, this is a thumbs up for me. I started watching this, and it was one of those things where it wasn't like a murder or something where I was like, oh God, this is going to be horrible. I don't know how I feel about taking enjoyment in this. But it was something that I just was like, oh, what's going to happen next? Ooh, how are they going to catch her? Oh my God, why is she making up these lies? And I was really drawn into the characters around Finch who were involved in this story, the fact that this revolved around Grey's Anatomy, which is something I only watched the beginning of Grey's Anatomy and then I stopped because it just got too far-fetched for me. But
it's real
now
stupid.
I know why.
The people love
now
it.
I know why. But this was just something, once I started watching, I'm like, okay, I've got to watch the next episode to see what happens next. I was just kind of captivated by it because it was fascinating to me to follow the story of somebody. And I've always said this, I like these stories where people are able to basically create a persona that isn't real. And how do they get caught? And how do they get away with it? And how do the people around them catch them or not catch them? And so that's what I was really fascinated by with this. So this is a thumbs up.
Toby Ball, thumbs up or thumbs down for Anatomy of Lies?
So I'll tell you, it's fine. They tell the story. Story's kind of interesting. I was a little frustrated that you have this situation where you have a woman who's a television writer, and I don't think it's really given a whole lot away to say that she was also kind of a con person and sort of appropriating stories, but they don't really take a look at that very much, right? It's just kind of presented as this happened, and then this happened, this happened, this happened. This story might have been based on this or whatever. But what line is being crossed, and where is that line? Just because most stories, I mean, you guys, Kevin and Rebecca do the Law and Order podcast. And it's always like, oh, this is ripped from the headlines. This is from this story.
How do you know that, Toby? You ever listen to that podcast?
Because I see your promo things on.
Not because he actually listens to the podcast. He just sees the reels and TikToks.
Yeah, exactly. So it's a pretty common thing. So, she's taking other people's stories, and it's really about how she sort of manipulates people. I just thought it was a kind of interesting dynamic that they just completely ignore, right? Just to kind of tell a pretty straight, this happened and this happened and this happened story. So I guess I'm kind of a mild thumbs up. I just felt like there's a lot of potential for sort of more interesting sort of analysis of what happened. And there's really almost none, like even as to like why she did what she did or anything like that. So mild thumbs up.
Kevin Flynn.
Yeah, I was kind of like going back and forth between a sideways and a mild thumbs up. It's an interesting story overall.
Go up.
Okay, it's a medium. It's a mild thumbs up.
Yeah, I bullied you into it.
Yeah, it's an interesting story overall, though it's not really deep or consequential. Set aside, of course, Jennifer's experience there. This is not Mommy, Dead and Dearest. It's not, Master of Lies. It's not Scamanda. It's a perfectly bloodless, cozy mystery, true crime mystery for those who just aren't looking for something heavy. An interesting story, but yeah, it lacked a lot of depth and introspection on who this person was, as opposed to just telling plot point A to plot point B to plot point C. I think it really could have benefited with a little more introspection from maybe even people who are sort of not within her circle, but also, again, the question why? Why would you do this? That never really, not that it doesn't get answered, it doesn't really get posed. So it's good. It's for what it is, it's fine, but not the deepest thing.
I super liked it. I'm giving it a hearty thumbs up. I don't think I need to know why a person like this did it. I think it's pretty self-evident that this person always wants to be in the center of everything, wants everyone looking at them, and wants to be able to get out of doing stuff they don't want to do. I mean, that's what it's about. I mean, maybe I like this more because I've had such a similar experience with somebody that I used to work with. And I was able to be like, oh my God, because it made me feel less alone.
We're looking at you, Toby Ball.
Yeah.
No, because I felt like bananas for a long time working with somebody who literally had a tragedy every 4 days. And it's comforting to know that this is a syndrome of sorts. I am not a person who needs to know why necessarily something that happened. And I am also a person who doesn't love it when outside experts come on and give analysis about people they've never met or never examined. So I thought it for what it was pretty good. A lot of juicy moments, a lot of holy shit moments. And sometimes, on a Sunday, you want to watch 3 short episodes of something and say holy shit a lot in front of the fire. Like, yeah, this is a good one for that. So yeah, big thumbs up for me. Now it's time for my favorite part of the podcast, a little something I like to call the crime
of the week.
A Dallas-based musician has put a call out for a drummer for his new band. It's a death metal slam band that will only cover songs by Chappell Roan. The only requirement, the drummer must be 70 years old. Eli Snyder admits his classified ad started as a joke, but since it's gone viral, he's HOTTOGO. Right, Kevin?
HOTTOGO. Yeah.
The frontman for alt-rock group Chimney Dream says he could go as low as 60 years old, but the drummer will only be paid in tapioca pudding.
Just like Laura.
Ooh. Snyder says he picked the Red Wine Supernova singer because she's popular at the moment and wants to call the band Whitechapel Roan. It's unclear whether the group will ever perform live and bang their heads to Good Luck Babe or Pink Pony Club, but if they do, they promise to become your favorite devil worshiper's favorite devil worshiper. Is that because they're death metal, Kevin?
Yes.
All right.
Yes. That's the Chappell Roan line. Your favorite artist's favorite artist.
Yes.
Yeah. By the way, we're your favorite podcaster's favorite podcast.
Correct. That's a very good t-shirt that we should do. Someone suggested that a while back. Chappell Roan and death metal appear to be an unlikely combination. Although I will say she sang country on SNL, and that also seemed like an unlikely combination. But Chappell Roan and death metal appear to be an unlikely combination. What is the next unexpected artist and musical style mashup? Laura Bricker.
Well, it just came to me as you were reading this that it is Toby Ball joining the Jimmy and the Parrots Jimmy Buffett tribute band.
Oh, yes. Yes, that's very unlikely. But it's unlikely.
I can see that happening.
My doing anything musical is pretty unlikely.
Toby, what's the next unexpected artist and musical style mashup?
Well, there have been Dred Zeppelin. Do you guys remember Dred Zeppelin with an Elvis impersonator as the frontman?
Yep.
And I guess this isn't forward looking, this is backward looking, but for some reason, something in the algorithm keeps pumping these Tom Jones, like the Welsh crooner. Like in the 60s was there's a thing with him doing a thing with Janis Joplin and another one with Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young. And with the Janis Joplin one, he is doing some crazy ass dancing. So I suggest you can Google that or try and find it on YouTube. It's pretty great.
Kevin, what do you think the next unexpected artist and musical style mashup is?
It's a band called Squeeze, and it's polka music of all this new wave synth rock. So it'd be pretty good.
So it's just Weird Al.
Oh, shit.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
All right. That's going to do it for us. But before we go, Laura Bricker, folks want to reach out to you online. How can they find you on social media?
You can find me at Laura Bricker on Instagram.
What about you, Toby Ball? How can you be found?
At Toby Ball NH on Twitter and TikTok, and at Toby Ball 603 on Instagram.
What about you, Kevin?
I'm at Grandpa Joe's a cuck.
Whoa.
That escalated quickly.
Yeah.
If you want to follow me
Fuck you, Grandpa Joe.
If you want to follow me on Twitter or Instagram, you can find me everywhere at Reb Lavoie. Follow the show everywhere at Crime Writers On. You can follow us on YouTube, but mostly I encourage you, aside from social media that you normally hang out in our official Crime Writers On Facebook discussion group. The folks there are amazing. Just go to our regular Facebook page and hit join the group. If you can literally say any one of our 4 names, we will let you in. Get episodes early and ad-free at patreon.com/Partners in Crime Media. You'll get the CWO After Show, Married with Podcast, Laura Bricker's Leave It to Bricker podcast, and Toby Ball's Deep Dive Book Club podcasts. Our theme song was composed and performed by Tyler Gibbons. Our editor is the terrific Livy Burdett. Executive producer of this program is Kevin Flynn. This show was was recorded in Studio C, the closet in our New Hampshire basement, where we also take an excessive amount of dubious sick days to get out of work. You feel okay, Kevin? On behalf of all the crime writers, thanks so much for listening. We will catch you later.
Did she do any of that kind of weird impersonation research for the vampire stuff?
Ooh.
Like I said, a lot of information was not given.
I infiltrated the vampire community and milked their stories.
It seems like the obvious question at the end of it all. When did this start?
She got all that good vampire content.
The graveyards of New Orleans. Skulking around.
Ooh.
In crime media. In the California Road Trip Republic, we believe you take adventure for a ride. Whether coastal cruising, mountain motoring, or redwood roaming, discover beauty around every turn. Your road trip can kick off from anywhere.
Starting route.
But it should always start at visitcalifornia.com. Then buckle up, crank those tunes, and discover why California is the ultimate playground.